Good afternoon. I am Joni Sussman, President of Books for Africa. I'd like to welcome you all to our Spring 2021 virtual Kilimanjaro Society meeting. I'm pleased that you've joined us to hear about recent successes and developments in Books for Africa's operations. Our Kilimanjaro Society members represent our top donors at Books for Africa. Thank you so much for your very generous support. I'm also pleased that we're joined by a number of our other key supporters, including Books for Africa Ambassador Circle members who support us in their communities, members of our board of directors, and Books for Africa staff. Welcome to all of you, and please consider becoming a member of the Kilimanjaro Society if you are not already. We have a special treat today. It is my honor to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Congresswoman Betty McCollum. Betty's been a longtime supporter of Books for Africa in many different ways, and will speak today on the topic of the role of international development NGOs in enhancing US security through building goodwill. Representative Betty McCollum represents Minnesota's 4th District in the United States House of Representatives. We are honored that Books for Africa is located in the Congresswoman's district. Throughout her career in public service, Representative McCollum has been a champion for excellence in education and advancing international development goals, including a strong national defense. As chair of the Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense, she is responsible for writing an annual defense funding bill of nearly $700 billion. Under her leadership, the committee is prioritizing a number of investments, including prevention of conflicts. Prior to Congress, Representative McCollum served in the Minnesota House of Representatives from 1993 to 2000. She is a graduate of the College of St. Catherine and the mother of 2 adult children. A Minnesota native, she grew up in South St. Paul, raised her family in North St. Paul, and lives in St. Paul. Representative McCollum, thank you for joining us today.
Out here to get the microphone going. Everything looking good for everybody. That's great. Well, first off, greetings, and it's a pleasure to join you today, the Kilimanjaro Society luncheon that you're going to be having, and it's a perfect day to be with good friends while it's raining outside, right? I just wanted to, start out by telling you why I'm here. It's because of Tom and Pat reaching out to me and making me totally fall in love with Books for Africa. Because I know the profound impact that you make when I'm in Africa and I visit a library, or I visit a school, or I visit someone who has had access to books provided by you folks. You make a difference to the lives and the students of young people all across Africa. Now, my first event with Books for Africa was 2002, 2003. So it's been a while since we've all been together working. And I just have to give another shout out to Tom Worth. He's been a dear friend. He's an enthusiastic champion. I know whenever I see him, it's going to be high and launch right into what the latest thing Books for Africa is doing. And he never misses an opportunity to send more books. And that's where Pat comes in, because Pat is kind of the logistics person, right? Or if you want to look at it as a stage production, we've got the producer and we've got the director. And I've been given a lot of direction by Pat sometimes about how we've got some books we have to move. So Tom and Pat, and for the whole board of Books for Africa, and all the supporters and donors who are here today, you've reached a remarkable milestone. I've been told that it's now more than 50 million books have been shipped. That's a lot of books. My mother was a librarian. She would say, good job, good job. So I know that there's more cities and schools and libraries and universities all across Africa where your books are, and they're ready for more. And there are children right now well, I won't say right now, they should be kind of sleeping a little bit. We've got a time difference, but there will be children that either went to bed with a book or waking up with one this morning. And that's real power for children, the power of literacy, the power of reading, the power of learning about the world. So here again, thank you, each and every one of you. You make me proud as a Minnesotan and as a member of Congress that I get to stand up and shout out all the great achievements of Books for Africa. And it is a well-run organization too. So you get kudos for that from State Department and Defense. When I was talking to my chief of staff about remarks today, we started reflecting on when I came to Congress in 2001. Back in the day, you didn't need a passport to go to Canada. So I didn't have a passport. And I was really focused on domestic issues and taking what I had worked on in the State House and on the City Council and making sure that the federal government lived up to its obligations and provided more hope and opportunity for community members. So I was going to be focusing on education and the environment and healthcare. And I've been able to do that important work, but I also discovered the world, and Africa in particular has become of great importance to me. Over the years, I've traveled the continent dozens of times. I have visited 17 countries over the past 20 years, whether it's been Chad, Gabon, Tanzania, Malawi, or Ethiopia. I have to tell you, I was always welcomed warmly. And over the years, I've worked on global health issues, conflict resolution, agriculture, and economic development, and have met so many government officials and community leaders in Africa that want to do this work together with the United States. But the common denominator, I will say as a parent and as a legislator trying to promote democracy, is access to education. And that's why the mission of Books for Africa is just so important. You know, I don't have to tell you that resources are scarce. And where resources are scarce, books become a luxury. And they shouldn't be a luxury for children, but they are. The books that you provide are a luxury item. And they need to be provided because every child needs a little bit of luxury in their life. While in Congress, I served on the International Relations Committee, where we passed the historic HIV/AIDS relief program known as PEPFAR. I traveled to Darfur to draw attention to the genocide. And I actually was with a UN convoy and we went into Sudan. We were supposed to stay on the Chad side, but there had just been a bombing and the UN officials wanted to check it out. So we went and we met with some people who had just escaped with their lives. I visited clinics. I have watched babies be born, new Tanzanians. I have had the opportunity to visit farms and schools in dozens of different countries. My last trip to Africa, in fact, my last trip anywhere outside of St. Paul and Washington, D.C., was in November of 2019 to Malawi. And I went there to look at some international work that the U.S. Forestry Service program was doing. And they were working on water quality and they were working on deforestation issues, and as well as poaching. So I had the opportunity to visit with some village projects there, everything from artisans to people working on poaching to people working on education. And once again, very warmly received. And the US was a valued partner. And they were so excited to work with us because we work respectfully when we're there, that other nations, and the example is very clear, China and Russia now when they're in Africa, it's an extraction. It's not an interaction. So things have changed for me with this year. I became the House of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, and I had the responsibility, as was pointed out, thank you for the kind introduction, of $700 billion of defense spending. But that includes U.S. AFRICOM Command and the U.S. military-to-military engagement with African countries. And I'm very proud of some of the work that our military does. When I was in Chad during the Darfur conflict, I watched some of our military men interact with the Chad military, and they were taking out pictures of their daughters, our U.S. servicemen, and talking about how their daughters go to school and their daughters play sports and their daughters were going to be leaders in their community. And these men from Chad were kind of like, you're talking, well, don't you have any boys? Oh yeah, I've got sons too, but let me tell you about my daughters. So that's an example of some of the military to military things that are going on. The other issues that they're working on, well, it's serious threats. I mean, we've all seen what's been happening with the ISIS affiliate in Mozambique. It breaks your heart and it terrorizes you at the same time when you see what is happening. In Nigeria, Somalia, and now, tragically, what's going on in Ethiopia. So the training and the mission support that we need to do with our military is one that says you need to confront extremism. You need to strengthen your military so that it's professional, so that it has respect for civilian leadership. And we teach also to respect and value human life. So those are lessons we try to import when we do these exchanges. So the role of the United States engaging with African countries is critical, and it's more important than any other time, I think, in the history of our nation. The COVID-19 pandemic, the economic crisis, it's difficult in every country, but you can imagine what African countries are going through. It's truly a healthcare, humanitarian, and development disaster all rolled up into one. Families, communities, and entire nations have very limited resilience to any kind of a crisis, let alone this crisis. They are literally being battered by the pandemic and the ever deepening poverty that we have been working on, the United States with the World Bank and other nations. We're watching some of those successes disappear. The hardest hit is always the children. Schools are closed. Access to learning has basically vanished. Families in many places are in survival mode, and that means girls are becoming more vulnerable. UNICEF, who we've been working with on reducing and eliminating child marriage, has told us that forced marriages are on the rise for young women. Most African countries have not seen one vaccine, and they probably aren't going to receive any COVID vaccines for a significant period of time. This has the potential of even deepening this already ongoing catastrophic situation in Africa. And add to that, the past 4 years, we know the leadership in the United States, the traditional leadership that we've had of making investments in diplomacy, development, and defense, the three-legged stool of US foreign policy. Well, we know that our national security, because of the Trump administration's disregard and disrespect for African nations, has really limited our ability to address not only this pandemic, but some of the other crises Africa has been facing. Can you imagine, and I'm not going to repeat the words of our former president, what he said about the African nations. And when I was in Africa, they were welcome to see an ambassador that warmly supported them. And you do that every time a book goes in somebody's hands. So thank you for you being there during the past 4 years. So now it's time to re-engage, right? I'm ready to do it. And it's time to reinvest in diplomacy. And it's time to reinvest in development that will sustain partnerships and elevates the quality of life for people, whether they're in the city, in a rural area, or any place in between. And that means working together to invest in, healthcare, food security, and promoting gender equality and getting education. And I also want to include sustainable energy development. That was one of the reasons why I was with the international forestry folks, is making sure that we don't see climate change even having more severe consequences in Africa. And I believe the Biden administration is ready to engage, and I think they're going to champion a partnership across Africa. The future of every African nation is the power of its own people, and that gets back to education, that gets back to books, that gets back to what you're doing. So that's why I'm working with Books for Africa, and we're working with Pat, and we're using the U.S. Department of Defense's Office of Humanitarian Assistance, and we're getting books to the continent. And I understand from the number of containers we recently sent, will be many more coming in the future months. So I look forward to this year, not only exploring more ways the Department of Defense can work, but I look to working with USAID also to be involved in getting more educational materials shipped to Africa. And that's the kind of soft power that will play an important role in restoring America's credibility. African civil society will grow stronger, and we will help them out of this pandemic. So Books for Africa, once again, you're one of the best possible faces of soft power. You're very powerful, know that. on supporting Africa's future, because the power of knowledge, the power of books is transformational, it's life-changing, and it's inspiring. So we know the COVID crisis isn't over here. We know that we have a lot of things that we have to address here at our own nation. We have food insecurity here, we have healthcare disparities, and we have the systematic challenges of addressing racial inequality, along with climate change and what we can do with here. And if it wasn't enough, on January 6th, we witnessed our own domestic terrorism attack. So we have work to do here at home, but we also, as a nation, must re-engage with the world in investing in vital global relationships, restoring America's responsible leadership to promote values, to promote peace, to promote opportunity, and the development of human potential. And in doing that, we will also secure our own national security. So I want to engage with the world, and I want to continue engaging in African nations, whether it's Tunisia, let's say Tanzania or Togo, where I haven't been yet. I want to do that, and I want to do that boasting about the great work that you do with Books for Africa. So I want to extend my deepest, warmest regards and appreciation to the board members, the supporters, and the donors, because I get to be in these African countries, and I get to take the credit for all the hard work you do to make sure that there's books in the hands of children and teachers. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Representative. We appreciate your time. I don't know if you have time for questions or.
I might have time for one or two. I do have another meeting I have to jump on.
If anyone has a question, if you can just put it into the chat, if you're familiar with that. And Chelsea, can you monitor that, please?
Yeah,
or I guess, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. In the meantime, thank you, Representative McCollum. You have been wonderful for Books for Africa. You represent us. You get frequently to Africa, which we really appreciate. And we very, very much appreciate your support really over all these many, many years. So thank you so much. Chelsea, do we have questions there?
we don't have questions in the chat yet. If anyone has a question, at the bottom of your screen, you have an option in the middle towards that says chat, and it'll open up a box where you can type your question.
In the meantime, I think Pat has a question.
Yeah,
That
thank
probably
you.
is more work for me. Right, Tom?
Thank you, Betty, for all of your great work. You mentioned Tunisia in your remarks, and actually just this morning, the ambassador from Tunisia called our office. We're planning on sending a container of medical books and a human rights law library funded by Thomson Reuters, and also a large quantity of Arabic children's books to Tunisia. I know you used to be a member of, I believe it was the Tunisia caucus. So just wanted to a shout out for Tunisia. And are you still involved with that country? We will definitely keep you appraised of our project in Tunisia as well.
Well, I have probably in the Department of Defense, I'll be engaging in that a little more. You know, the spring democracy birth in Africa and in the Middle East really happened in Tunisia. And the Tunisian military gave the public the space to do what it needed to do. And a lot of that credit goes to the Tunisian military being on the phone with their counterparts and people that they had been mentored by in the US military, saying, your job is not to attack, your job is calling Maria Law. Okay, well, if there isn't anything else, just thank you so much. And, have a successful meeting. And I'm going to give my pitch because we're not out of the pandemic yet. I'm fully immunized. I still wear a mask. I still wash my hands. It's allergy season, so I'm trying very hard not to touch my face. And I don't social distance, I physical distance. So we'll get through this pandemic together and we'll get on the other side of it. And in the meantime, as I'm working to improve things here at home, know that I am working with members in Congress to make sure we don't forget our brothers and sisters in the African continent and other places around the world. All the best.
Thank you, Representative McCollum. Thank you very much. And now I will turn the program over to Patrick for the rest of the program.